Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Chris Cundy here. Most of you know me as KillrBuckeye. I'm coming to you from Detroit, Michigan in the USA. And we have Finn Maxwell here, who most of you know as Musicman1066. He's also the guitarist of the UK-based tech death metal band Embodiment. He's coming to us from Bristol, England. How you doing tonight, Finn?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's currently just gone 10:30. Yeah, I'm really excited for this. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm doing great. So obviously, first time for me doing something like this, but I'm really excited about it. Should be fun. Thank you for staying up late and joining us for this.
No problem. No problem.
So Finn and I did some work to try to make this happen with the live stream here, obviously being separated by quite a distance here in different time zones, but I think we've got it working okay at this point.
We have. We did have a few technical glitches at the very start, so we've had roughly about sort of 2 weeks to prepare for this, and we're still getting not perfect. It's a little bit clunky, this kind of setup, because obviously it's been broadcast over Skype, which is something I've never done before. So just hope for the best, really, won't we?
Yeah, I think that's all we can do. So yeah, shortly we'll be premiering the video for our new track, Disillusion. So I'm really excited for everyone to hear this and to see the video. But before we get to that, we're going to talk a little bit about how each of us got started playing guitar and how we got started on YouTube, how we became friends through YouTube, and then eventually started collaborating on music and so on. And we'll talk about Disillusion, the process for creating that song. And I just want to encourage everyone who's watching, if you have any questions for us, please type them in as comments in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer those questions at the end. So I guess I'll go first. I'll talk a little bit about the history of me playing here, and then I'll give Finn a chance to give his same spiel. So I started playing guitar around the age of 13 or 14, and I think I started with bands like Nirvana and Alice in Chains, that type of alternative rock. And then pretty soon after that, got into metal. So, I mean, Metallica was by far my biggest influence. So their first 4 or 5 albums really are the foundation for everything I know how to do on guitar. And, Megadeth, Slayer, Pantera, Sepultura, Testament, those are all huge influences for me. And when I just got into that music, I had this desire to learn how to play it on the guitar, and I spent hours every day just playing the guitar. I'd come home from school and pick it up and play it, and I took it on family vacations. It was just, I sort of have an obsessive personality like that. When I get into something, I have to just keep doing it and keep doing it. But
yeah, that sounds all too familiar. All too familiar.
So, yeah, I met up. I got some friends in high school who were also musicians, and that's really was the basis of our friendship. We both like to play metal, and so a good friend named Trevor, he played bass, and we were in several different bands together. So our first bands were like the Metallica, Slayer, thrash metal style, and then over the years it sort of transitioned into more of a new metal when that became the thing. So Korn, Deftones, Rage Against the Machine, early Incubus and early Seven Dust, all those bands. That's sort of what shaped our sound. And I was in bands like that throughout college. And then what happened is I graduated college and I moved away. I was in Columbus, Ohio, attending Ohio State, and moved away to start a job in Michigan. And obviously, you didn't have any other musicians to play with, and the music, the new metal music that I was into, not the most exciting type of music to play on guitar, if I'm being honest. And I sort of got bored with it. I stopped playing for a few years, actually, between 2003 and 2006. I wasn't playing very much. I didn't know anything about the metal scene or metalcore or anything like that. And really what got me back into it was when I discovered metalcore. And I always remember, I have this vivid memory of being out on a work trip in Arizona, and I was driving back to my hotel room one night, and this song came on the radio, just the local like Phoenix radio, and I was just blown away by the guitar work, how powerful it was, and the harmonies, and it sort of reminded me of old Metallica, but with a more modern sound. And that song was Rose of Sharon by Killswitch Engage. And from that point on, I got into many different other metalcore bands, and I quickly rediscovered my love for playing, and that's really what got me back into it. And so it was metalcore, and discovered lots of bands. And Finn, you actually introduced me to Parkway Drive, in those early years. Loved Parkway. But
I'm glad you remembered. I was actually going to bring this up during the stream in case you'd forgotten.
Yeah, I have to credit you for that, for sure. But right around that time, I was getting back into playing guitar, and I discovered metalcore. That's when YouTube was really blowing up. And I remember getting on YouTube. I don't remember if I was searching out cover songs on guitar or not, but I just remember there was such crap on there in terms of the sound quality. And even the cover videos that were pretty good in terms of the accuracy, they had horrible sound quality because they were recorded with like the camera microphone, and it just sounded like garbage. And I thought to myself, I can make a better video than this. And in addition to that, I missed playing for an audience. There's something about playing for an audience. It gives you some exhilaration that you don't get when you're playing guitar just by yourself. And so I wanted to try my hand at YouTube, and it helped that I had dabbled in PC audio recording a little bit before, like when I was in college, and I was able to then put that to use and record directly into my computer. Nothing fancy, just a sound blaster in my computer, but it was this perfect storm of me getting into guitar right as YouTube was blowing up, and have this experience with being able to record direct, and that's how it all got started for me. And I never expected to gain a following on YouTube or anything like that. So it was just sort of amazing what it turned into at the time. And I have to say, like, if I were starting out now, I don't think there's any way I could set myself apart from what's on YouTube now. There's just tons of amazingly talented people on there. So I think I just sort of got lucky in terms of the time when I was starting this. But I've been rambling on for a bit. So Ben, why don't you talk about your early days?
Well, the first instrument I ever played wasn't actually guitar. It was piano was the first one I professionally sort of got into. I took a load of grades for it, and it was not until maybe my my high school, which is when I started really getting into guitar. Mainly because of my friends. Really, my friends had guitars. Well, my best friend at the time had a guitar, and you kind of want to copy your friends a bit, don't you? So I got one for Christmas, which is the very first electric guitar I ever owned, which is the Stag Aria. It's basically the Stratocaster. But in terms of early music I used to play, I used to be a massive White Stripes fan. I remember getting my very first iPod around the same time as I got a guitar, and the only album I had on it was Elephant by White Stripes. And I was just completely blown away by all of Jack White's guitar sounds that he managed to get. So that kind of got me inspired a lot more to practice a lot more. I still haven't learned any of the songs. I don't really think I'll be able to do him much justice, really, because I don't have his flair. But I remember getting I got an expression pedal one year for my birthday. And it was after getting that my sort of devotion kind of amplified sort of tenfold, because, as a guitarist, you get a new piece of gear, it really inspires you to keep going, do as much as you can. I got to play with all these crazy sounds I'd never had done before. And it was around that sort of time I did start getting into YouTube as well. I mean, obviously at first I was a bit of a lurker. I just sort of look around. My friends and I we'd be playing guitar together. We'd watch some YouTube videos, sort of our bands at the time. Sort of it's very similar to what you're talking about. But probably I was more of a sort of metalcore guitarist, more of a metalcore fan, sort of from the very start. So I never really got experience to. I'd probably want to say like the big four, like Megadeth or Metallica or Slayer or any of that lot until many years later. So it's always kind of had that sort of spot on my heart to say, really. But yeah, I got onto YouTube. We would look up videos. My mate actually linked me your stuff. I think as your Hand of Blood cover, we were quite big into sort of old school Bullet for Valentine. I watched it. I was impressed by the sound quality. But me being me, I didn't actually have an account at that time. So after watching that video of yours, I did decide, I'm going to bite the bullet and I'm going to make myself an account. And our first ever communication ended up being me writing you out a tab for the solo that I thought you were playing wrong, which is just one of the best introductions you can ever get. That saying, you can never get a second chance to make a first impression, it really applies here. Definitely. But yeah, got onto YouTube at the same time, learned about audio recording through YouTube, through sort of studying what you'd put. I think we had various messages back and forth back then as well. So I would end up connecting my multi-effects pedal to my PC through the means of a quarter jack to 3.5 adapter, which would barely fit into the actual front microphone slot, which is how I started doing my direct videos. And it just sort of just went from there, really, didn't it?
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, you mentioned the comments on my videos, and I have something to share with everyone here that hopefully doesn't embarrass Finn too much. You realize there's a feature on YouTube. It allows you to search through all of your comments that have ever been posted on your videos. So all I had to
brilliant.
do was go in there and search by Finn Maxwell, and I found, it was like a gold mine, some of these comments that I found. Yeah. But
my privacy is completely gone now, isn't it? Internet privacy is just a thing of the past.
I'm surprised you didn't delete some of these comments, I have to be honest. So
I should do, really.
Let's go ahead and play this. So here's Finn around 2007. I think all of you remember the mask, right?
Yeah.
Famous mask, which I want to ask you about after this. So here's my Hand of Blood video that you just mentioned. Cool. Don't be offended by this, but you're kind of playing it wrong. And go ahead and tab it out for me. Master Puppet solo. Awesome job. But don't you agree it's a little bit out of tune? Yeah, you're actually right. I listened to that. I could have done a better job with the tuning. I think that 7/8, 7/8, 7/8 is wrong. I do the pull off on the 7th fret because I get that weird sound. All right. Fair enough. Dude, the intro is wrong. The second time round, it's an octave higher. Sounds great. Good tone. I noticed a few things, though. Like a lot of things. So, yeah, I have to admit, some of those comments back then, I was thinking to myself, who is this kid? The 13, 14-year-old kid, and he's giving me all kinds of trouble about my covers. I don't see him on here doing it any better. But of course, it wasn't long before, you started posting videos, and I mean, you were right there and surpassed me pretty quickly in terms of your playing ability.
Yeah, the result of having no life, I will tell you. Honestly, that is. Old YouTube comments. So when I first started it, I was quite uncomfortable with the idea of myself being sort of view to the public, of all times. My parents had a strong kind of bias against it as well. When I floated the idea, they didn't like it. But predominantly for me, why I chose to go down this avenue of covering my face was I got to say, I really struggled. I had quite a big amount of social anxiety back then, and it wasn't just about guitar playing. It was the thought of anyone seeing me out in public or anything like that. It really did give me a strong sense of panic, and I was starting to do videos just for my own amusement with guitar, and I just watched them back, and I was just constantly focused on myself, and it really made me not want to do anything with it at all. But luckily at that time we'd been, well, my mate was quite into Guitar Hero, so, and I had the game too, and I knew you had the game too,
Of course.
but yeah, one of the songs was Buckethead, Jordan. I got really into that song, really into all of his stuff, and I saw him wearing this white face mask, and I thought it was quite cool. So I decided to copy it for myself. So I went and got a load of them, played around with it a little bit, positioning, and that was my solution. That was my solution to my fear of being seen, if we want to put it like that anyway.
Okay. Oh, it makes a lot of sense. And that sort of became your trademark, right? I think there's a lot of people that probably remember a kid in a mask playing all these awesome cover songs, right? But they didn't remember your name or the name of your YouTube channel.
Yeah. I was just I was part of the YouTube furniture at that point. Like looking back on it, the mask did help me in some ways to gain a lot of popularity, but I never saw it as that at all. I don't know why I gained popularity. Maybe it was well, I don't know. I think I was quite quick off the mark in learning new tracks, and yeah, I think I just did my best with them as much as I could.
Yeah, I think you're selling yourself short. I mean, you had some super accurate covers. I mean, and I just saw the other day your Slipknot psychosocial covers, like over 5 million views now. It's ridiculous.
The classic psychosocial. Yeah, I only did that actually because one of my mates told me to do it. Actually, funny enough, he told me to do it, and and I'm gonna clarify this for everyone now, since there seems to be a lot of confusion, specifically about this video. I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of comments or messages about this. I didn't record that song in drop A. I recorded it in drop C, but I actually pitch shifted up the song by 3 semitones to make it into drop C tuning. Mm-hmm. And then once I'd recorded everything, I'd pitched it down because I really, really did not want to set up my Floyd Rose with drop A tuning at all. Well, I remember
mentioned that in the video info too, right? The description.
I did. I think some stuff gets a bit lost in translation. I think what I've realized over the years with YouTube, it does kind of get a bit lost in translation, I think. So just double clarity again. And the guitar tone was interesting for that one. I mean, it worked, but basically what I'd done is, because I was tuned, because I knew I was going to be pitching it, shifting it down, I knew I wouldn't have as much high end as I wanted. So I thought it'd be a very good idea to stick on the chorus from the classic Red Bean that I bought because of you. And as I said, it's okay. It sounds okay. But funny enough, I still have that mask at my parents' house, which is an island, because I don't have a lot of them anymore. I don't have any of them anymore, actually, come to think of it, but I think I have that one still, and it's in my bedroom drawer.
You should bust it out one of these times, all right? And you look cool with a
Yeah.
beard hanging down below it too.
Yeah, but that's the thing though now, isn't it? I mean, like, I don't need a mask anymore because I've grown one. I've just got all this to cover it. So that's my new
point.
mask.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Well, I mean, Finn and I stayed in touch over the years through, mostly Facebook Messenger, right? And even during the 10 years that I was on my hiatus, not doing anything on YouTube, not picking up the guitar, right? We would talk from time to time, and eventually, we got the chance to meet up in London. So I was in England for work last year, and I let Finn know I was going to be there. The Finn being a train ride away in Bristol, right? We got the chance to meet up in London, which is a really cool experience. So let me show this picture. This is taken right after we had many drinks in a bar in London, and we had a great conversation. It was so good to meet up in person. So I'm hoping we have the chance to do that again soon.
Yeah, it was definitely a night to remember. I never thought that would ever happen in my entire life. I'd always sort of considered you to be a very distant friend who it would maintain this kind of distance, but to actually have the chance to meet up was brilliant. It was great to sort of go through what we're talking about now and sort of share some of the sort of highs and lows of YouTube and just talk a load of crap, really. After several drinks, I think that's fair to say that always happens.
Yes, indeed.
Especially now I was actually of legal drinking age, because obviously when I started talking to you, I was probably, well, significantly younger than I am now. That sounds a lot worse than the way I meant it. So I do apologize for that.
We all know what you meant. So when I was doing my 10-year hiatus from YouTube, right, you kept up with the music and you actually got more into it, and you went to school to learn about audio engineering, right?
Yeah, I did. So I actually went to two universities. The first one being Bath Spa, where I did a course in music production and artist development. And as I said, because I had sort of gone away so much from sorry, I'm being distracted by Les. Les is commenting and he's messaging me at the time, so I'm sort of flicking back and forth. Yeah, so obviously being a lot more interested in audio from YouTube, having to sort of record direct, it really sort of opened my eyes. And before I went to uni, I spent so much time looking into audio, especially in terms of metal albums. And there's this one particular forum where I learned as much as I could. I think I must have read every single thread in it. It's called the Andy Sneap forum. And Andy Sneap's done a lot of my favorite albums anyway, and probably a lot of yours as well. For instance, he's done Killswitch Engage, Trivium, Megadeth, Judas Priest. His list of credits is endless, and I really loved his sound. So I spent hours upon hours researching through every single thread, trying to get every piece of information about every single guitar tone ever made by him, the various mic techniques, because I was so convinced that I was, this is what I wanted to do, work with audio. And back in 2011, I got into Basketball University, started learning about music production, not just about sort of audio wise, it was also about how to promote yourself as an artist. So you learn a lot more about the music industry from that, which that information has really helped me. I have to say though, in terms of what we actually learned about audio wise, this is a nitpick. Metal wasn't really a massive hit with the with the university professors and anything. We predominantly spent a lot of time researching methods of creating electronic music, sort of compressors and EQs, how to get balance and different kind of techniques you can use. And even though I said, well, I think I found it a little bit disheartening at the time, that information has been, again, almost sort of invaluable to me, because you apply a lot of the same techniques you do for electronic music than you do for metal music, especially in terms of like the low end and balancing kick and bass and getting the right level of sort of attack from your drums and all of this. So I did my 2 years there. Then I did a further 2 years in Bristol studying audio music technology, which was quite interesting as well. I learned a lot about acoustics, about how to measure what the frequency response of your mixing room is, sort of psychoacoustics, all this kind of stuff. Not that I use loads of it now, but it was still a good experience. So
Okay. Yeah, so you kept learning about music and doing more with music back at that time, I completely stopped doing anything at all with music, really around 2010 after I did The Rising. So a lot of people are probably wondering, what happened in those 10 years, where did I go? So, I mean, I don't have a great answer for it. I've talked a little bit about it on my website, but, it's just one of those things. Kids came along around that time, and I just didn't have the time and the energy to keep doing it. So with my personality and the way I tend to work on music, I need really big chunks of time, like an hour, 2 hours at a time minimum. And it wasn't there in those days, when the kids were born. And my older son has special needs, actually. And my younger son, he was born prematurely. And fortunately, everything worked out okay with that. But it was some tough years, back in 2010, 2011, 2012. And I couldn't get any practice time in. And every time I did pick up the guitar, it was sort of discouraging for me, because I was so rusty. It was so bad. I didn't even want to keep playing. I knew it was going to take way more time than what I had available to get back into it. So that's essentially why I stopped. And but as the kids got older, they became more self-sufficient, and I was able to start getting back into it. And I have to credit a work colleague of mine, Matt. He had started organizing these events at work, sort of team building events, where he would ask people to come in and talk about their hobbies and what they did outside of work. And he wanted me to talk about how I got started on YouTube and what I did with guitar and music. And he wanted me to come in and give a live performance as well. And I said, okay. I was sort of hesitant to take him up on that offer, because I was so rusty. I mean, I could not play my own songs at all at that time. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I knew I had to put in a lot of work to avoid completely embarrassing myself. And that's the thing that really got me into practicing again. I made it a point to practice a couple hours every day for a few weeks. And really that's what it took to knock the rust off. And that event went pretty well. There's actually a video of that on my KillrBuckeye Facebook page, a little clip of that playing The Rising. So that's how it all came to be again. And so as I was thinking about coming back to YouTube and realizing that it was a very good possibility that I could do it, this is when, in my conversations with Finn, you offered to help out on the production of the new song I was working on, because I wanted to come back with an original song that was Inner Balance. And so I come up with the arrangement, and I recorded all my parts, and I shipped off the whole project to you. And then, you worked your magic on it, and it was I was so amazed when I got that track back from you. And I remember telling you that this must be what it feels like when these bands go and they work with someone like Adam D and they have ideas for these songs, and he's just able to just bring out so much more in them, with his creative ideas and with arrangements, and it was just incredible. So now I feel like I'm in the situation where if I'm going to do my own, keep doing my own songs, right, I need to keep going back to you, Finn. So be ready for that, and
that's fine. Yeah, I'm more than happy. Always happy to give you a hand. I love being creative with music. It's the best part of the job, really. Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, it's what I would say I do is I would class myself as a bit of I'd like to say I'm a producer, and as far as that job role goes, it's always about trying to get the best end result for the song. Because even comparing like production to mixing, there's often a bit of a sort of misunderstanding between the two. I always see a producer as more of a sort of musical director, someone who directs your performances, who sits down, looks at the arrangement of the song, focuses on the strong points and the weak points, and just does their best to get a good balance of the true artist idea and an alternate version, which demonstrates all the strengths of the tracks. And I feel like I did that within a balance. That was quite a good fun project for me. Actually, I really enjoyed doing that. I got to get my bass out, do a bit of a bass line, which I don't really do that much anymore. I used to do a lot more projects involving bass, but yeah,
I
not
think
so much now. So
that added so much to it, and that's something I was going to mention about the Disillusion songwriting process for me. Right, you had recommended that I should get a bass and try to write some bass lines, because it really opens up new ideas, new possibilities for the song, and things that you wouldn't have otherwise heard in your head. And that definitely was true for Disillusion, as I wrote some of my own bass lines for the first time, and they really added to the song and complexity of the song and how it all went together. So
yeah, and I've got you mentioned this guy earlier, but yeah, Adam D, especially when you're talking about bass, Adam D is the guy you want to go to. He always has such great bass line ideas. I mean, one of my favorite bass albums in terms of what he's done has got to be, he did the Times of Grace album, his collaboration between himself and Jesse Leach when he was getting back surgery. That's one I constantly refer to, or anything that he's done with Killswitch, because I know he's going to have quite a heavy part in a lot of the songwriting, a lot of the bass writing, because he did bass at Berkeley University. He studied that as a lot alongside engineering, like audio engineering.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah. No, well, that's what years of stalking does to you. I've read that Wikipedia article I don't know how many times, but yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that Times of Grace album for me too is one of my favorite albums of all time. Just incredible. Every track on there is top notch.
Did you know it was done with passive pickups?
I did not know that. Yeah, because he uses EMGs on pretty much all the KSE stuff, I think.
Yeah. I think he did his PRS. I think he had Seymour Duncan's for it, and he did everything for that. Didn't he? He did all the I think he wrote all of the stuff. I think he wrote all the lyrics, all the bass, all the drums. He recorded all himself. It's a great album. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess we're already almost 40 minutes into this. So I want to get to the song quickly. So let me just set up, talk a little bit about the background, how Disillusion came about, and then after the song we'll talk a little bit more about the creation process. But so the background on Disillusion is I had started piecing together some riffs in April-May timeframe of this year. So that was when the COVID pandemic had really started to take hold take hold worldwide, and I was able to start working from home. It's kind of nice because it gives me more time. Instead of spending an hour and a half in the car commuting every day, I can play guitar instead. And so, anyways, I decided to dig some riffs out from a long time ago. So a lot of the main riffs, the ideas in the song came from the 2011 time frame, where at one point I was thinking this was going to be the follow-up to The Rising. And as I said earlier, I could just never find the time and energy to finish that up back then. So I dug these riffs back up, and I made an arrangement. I wrote some solos, and I already talked about the bass guitar, but I got a really inexpensive bass guitar to help with that. And it's the first time I'd done anything with recorded bass. Everything, The Rival and The Rising, my previous tracks were all just pitch shifted guitar, which sort of fills in the space, but it's not interesting at all. So I put everything together, and I started coming up with some solos. And I have to mention my son Evan, my older son. He's really into metal. It's his favorite genre, and we listen to music together. And he was into Disillusion. He had been encouraging me with the previous release, Inner Balance, to go ahead and finish it up, because I think it had been 2 years I was sitting on most of that, not doing anything. He's like, why don't you just release it? Okay, I'll take the plunge and do it. But with Disillusion, he was like screening all these ideas for me. And I'd play him a riff, play him some solos, and ask him what he thought. And nothing made it into the song without his approval, I have to say. So, but I finally got to the point where it was an arrangement I was happy with, and I asked Finn to, if he'd be willing to help with it again. And fortunately, you were, right? You had just finished up with your album a few months before, right? You had done a lot of work producing Embodiment's latest release, Palingenesis, and which I want to give you a plug for that now. Right?
Thank you. Yeah.
If you guys haven't checked out Palingenesis, this is an incredible album. Really top-notch stuff here. And Matt Heffy put this on his list of top albums in 2020, right? That's how good it is. He was so impressed with this. So please, everyone, I encourage you to check this out. And I mentioned, I think I mentioned it, maybe it didn't up to this point, but Leslie Preston from Embodiment, the drummer from Embodiment, you had asked him to write some drum parts for Disillusion. And
I did. Yeah, I did. I'd wanted to get him into another project outside of just our own band for quite a long time, and this kind of seemed like the perfect opportunity to do so, because as it stands, I'm not the biggest fan of writing drum parts myself. I think you can sort of vouch for me as well. It can be quite a tedious process. So having worked with him on obviously all of our albums, it's great to have another perspective into it. You can sort of change up the feel of the song in certain parts, and sort of reimagine parts, and it just gives that sort of human element. Because if it was me doing it, and I think Les would sort of agree with me as well, it would just be me getting him to do three things with one hand, which is something I think he's quoted me on before, or he's accused me of once before on but yeah, I think he did a really great job. I'm really thankful for the time he's put into it, and I'm really pleased with it.
Really happy that Les was willing to work with us on this, and I think the drum parts it came up with were awesome. And having him do the drum performance for the video, which we're going to see in just a minute, was cool too, right? It added a whole nother element. I think we're at the point now we can play the video, right? And so we'll play the video. It's about 4 minutes long, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more about the process, creating the video and the track as well. All right, so without further ado, here is Disillusion. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm really happy. I'm so happy with the way that turned out. So I'm excited for everyone to see it, the broader audience to see it when it comes out tomorrow on YouTube and in all the stores. I just I want to give some thanks at this point. So the artwork for Disillusion was done by Tom at trodesigns@hotmail.com. So we obviously use that artwork for a lot of the promo materials and the fonts and some visual elements in the video as well. And I want to thank Guy Joyner at Signpost Audio for doing the mastering on that. That's someone you've gone to a lot, Finn, for your mastering stuff. I think he does it.
I am. I have worked with him. I have worked with him a lot. He's a great guy to work with. That was a pun. No, about all puns aside. No, he's fantastic to work with. He put up with my many revisions of my album mixing, which, as you can imagine, there were many. Even during this, I'd bounce something and there'd be something missing. I'd get the track back and say, "Oh no, something's missing." So that's Guy Joyner at Signpost Audio. If you are finishing mixing a track and you want someone to go master, give him a shout. He'll be happy to help you out.
I want to thank Les as well for composing those drum parts and performing it for the video. As I mentioned earlier, I think that added a lot to the track and the video. And of course, thank you, Finn, for all of your creative contributions on the track and the mixing, the overall job of the production you did. Phenomenal.
No problem. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
So with the video, I just want to mention a few things about that. I mean, for me, it is the most ambitious video editing project I'd ever done. So I learned how to use a new software, which I hadn't heard about up until really a few months ago, called DaVinci Resolve, and it's free, believe it or not. And so I had been contemplating whether I pay for Adobe Premiere subscription, which is quite expensive actually, and I'm kind of cheap, so I'm like, okay, let's see if we can do this with a free software. And DaVinci Resolve, and once you learn it, I think it can do anything that Premiere can do, and there's a bit of a learning curve, but once I figured out how to work in there, I feel pretty comfortable, and doing all that split screen stuff and the titles and their overlays in the video, it was quite easy. So
just to let everyone know, this video is actually sponsored by DaVinci Resolve.
Sorry, it probably did sound sort of like an advertisement, right? But no, I'm kind of shocked that it's free, but for recording my parts in the video, I started using my wife's DSLR camera. She's a photographer, and so the last few cover songs I've done, I've been using that camera, which takes way better high def video than even my iPhone. Just the sort of the depth of field that you get with that, and the cinematic look that can't be matched. And then I've used different camera angles. You've probably noticed that in some of my recent cover videos, if you've seen them. Makes the videos more interesting, I think. Of course, the clips that Finn sent and Les sent over, put that all together, and I think it turned out great.
The video definitely looks fantastic. This is, as you said, it is your most ambitious video project, and it said, hats off to you. I wouldn't have the patience to do that. I'll give him my history with iMovie and Windows Movie Maker. Oof, I didn't think so.
Yeah. Well, my wife can tell you I've spent many hours down in the basement on the weekends playing around and trying to get it just right. But hopefully it won't take so much time in the future now that I know what I'm doing. I wanted to ask you, when you're going about mixing and producing a song, what's your approach now, and how is it different than what you used to do from your early original songs on YouTube?
Well, in terms of mixing or producing, I'll start producing because there's sort of less to it. If I get sent something, I have to sit and listen to it a whole bunch of times. But generally, I can kind of tell what my favorite parts are on my first listen. So I focus on those. Again, I'll give it repeat listens. I focus on those. I will import the track into sort of Logic or Reaper, whatever it is, tempo map it out, and then I can actually start playing around with some of the sections from there. So I can kind of cut parts out from here and move them to a different part in the song. just see what works out better. But sometimes things I'll just hear something in my head for a certain part. I'm like, right, this has to happen here because it emphasizes this next part, or you want to bring in an extra layer here to mimic this part to give it more dimension or something like that. It's one of those things. It's quite difficult to explain, but once you get into it, it becomes a lot more natural. I think it will always come down to the song, though. Every single decision you make, whether it be producing a song or mixing a song, it's still going to be 100% about the song. You can't put mix quality over song, in my opinion. But mixing wise, I've been using Logic Pro 10 for quite a number of years now. I quite like the workflow on it. But whenever I start a mix, I always start with drums. I find getting a good drum sound to be pinnacle to any metal mix, because it's the beat of the song. If you can have stellar guitars and stellar bass and leads and vocals and everything, but if your drums don't sound good, then your whole thing kind of doesn't sound good. So I build everything around that. Mix all my drums first, then I mix my guitars, then I mix my bass, and then after all the essential stuff is done, that's when I can sort of start thinking about layers, because it's almost like it is a big job in itself. You have to work hard at getting all your smaller layers working together before you can even sort of think about being creative, I find, because once everything is kind of clear to you as a mixer and you can hear the song for how it's supposed to be, that's when you can start appreciating the actual music of it. Because there's something that I always see floating about this, but it's when you get into audio, you wish you never got into audio, because you start reading about it and you start focusing on all the audio details, like how perfect your snare is or your balance or anything like that. It really distracts you from the fact that you're doing music. It's kind of for a while it's got like one or the other, but after you've stuck with it for a while and you've learned your way about it, and as soon as you realize it's song first, production second, that's when you start sort of being at peace with it. So that's generally my approach, if I try to sort of, if that makes any sense to anyone, which hopefully it does.
No, I think it makes perfect sense, and it's obviously working for you, in my opinion anyways. But yeah, I was surprised to hear you make comments before, like about your old songs that you did, in the early YouTube days, of how you're embarrassed by the production on them now, and it drives you nuts. But to me, those sound pretty good, right?
Well, thank you. Obviously, recording back then, as I said, it was. I would say the biggest change now to then was back then I would commit to tones. I'd always commit to tones from the get-go. I'd have no opportunity to change my guitar tone or anything like that. I'd figure it out on my pedal or whatever it is, go straight in. It's tracked, it's printed. But now I've become so used to digital software, I never record guitar directly with a tone already on it. I have to take it as a DI. Just because it gives me so much more flexibility in terms of what I can get, different sounds I can try. I can take my guitar track and I can run it through like 2 different things or 3 different things, or I can blend it with something else to get something else. It's just, you get a lot more possibilities if you're doing stuff that way than if you kind of limit yourself to what you start with, because what you start with might not be what you want at the end. And then if you commit to stuff, you sort of just have to sort of live with the tracking decisions you make, unless you want to sort of go back and track it all again. And I'm not a massive fan of tracking everything again, even though I've done it several times, several songs.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the other things I want to point out, the intro and the outro to Disillusion, right? Those have some electronic music elements in them, and but that's something that you know you sort of dabbled in before, more than dabbled in, right? You released an EP, The Science of Sound, which again I'm going to give you another plug because this is an awesome release. You know, three tracks that you did back in 2014. Some of my favorites. I listen to these quite often on Spotify. So I encourage everyone to check that out. But I mean, how did you get into doing the electronic music, and how did you learn how to do that? Was that, I think I heard you say you learned about some of that in school, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first, thank you for liking that. I It was actually primarily a university project that I wanted to explore something different, and at the time, one of the bands I was listening to quite consistently was Periphery. I'd heard so much Periphery stuff sort of on TV music stations and through forums and everything, and I was really intrigued by the electronic stuff, which was is a sort of battle of oneself, because at the time I was so very stubborn against it. I was like, no, I'm never doing electronic. I hate electronic, all this stuff. I never bothering with it. And then sort of really opened my eyes to what you can really do with it. And so I had a go at doing it. Came up with a 3-track EP. All the tracks flow seamlessly into one. I really wanted to do that kind of approach again, something that I stole from Periphery. Periphery was what inspired me, ultimately. Periphery, Animals as Leaders. That's what got me into doing it.
Okay. Had a cameo appearance from my son, who just ran into the picture here in the background. He's coming back here.
Oh, I can see him. I'm watching the live stream in another window. I just saw him pick up.
That was my son, William. I think they're trying to tell me they want me to wrap it up soon, but I think we just got a few more minutes here, and then we'll be done, right? I want to get to some of the questions that were asked in the chat. I think we've covered, most of what I wanted to cover. I don't want to bore everyone with all the details of, each part of Disillusion and how it all came together, other than to say that, Finn did some awesome things with taking my original arrangement and sort of compressing it and making it more interesting, and sort of overlaying some parts, make it more interesting. I would not have been able to come up with those ideas by myself. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Again, you're welcome. It was my pleasure.
All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to look through the comments here and see if there's any.
Danger zone. Looking at the comments is always danger zone.
Well, we'll ignore some if we have to. You have to have red hair to play in your band.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Funny enough, my bassist and I both have red hair. Back in school, we used to be confused as brothers quite consistently, even by one of the teachers. So, fun fact for you there.
Yeah, it's funny. I did a YouTube cover video with somebody else recently. I don't know if you've seen him, Jacob Martin. He's in Australia. He also has red hair, and so people were asking if that was my son. But yeah,
sorry to interrupt. Wasn't that a rumor back in the day as well that we were related?
Yes, it was.
Did you ever see that? Yeah.
There's lots of
sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, there was also a rumor going around that I had died in a car accident during those 10 years that I was missing. Fortunately, I'm still here, alive and well.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. It's all conspiracy. Yeah, just.
Matt Oros, one of my buddies from high school, says he can still smell the Alvarosa Villa. There's a club back in Columbus that we used to play at. My bands back in high school would play at this club, and it's infamous now because it's where Dimebag Darrell was murdered on stage. But that was the place we played most regularly those early days.
Wow.
Somebody asks, Killer, is KSE your favorite band aside from Metallica? A good question. I have a hard time, picking a favorite band. KSC, Killswitch Engage is certainly one of my favorites for sure. So I think it depends on. My favorite band changes over time, I would say. For a while, it was Trivium was a clear number one for me, and then All That Remains held that spot for a while. So I don't know. It's hard for me to pick a favorite, but KSE is way up there for sure. And
yeah,
then
and me.
another,
I looked at my Spotify Wrapped recently, and it turns out that I'm in the top 0.5% of Killswitch Engage listeners. So
nice.
good for me.
So there's a question about favorite band. Maybe you wanna address that anymore, Finn? Do you have the favorite bands?
Well, I would agree with you. Yeah, it does sort of fluctuate. I'd say even though I've been a massive metalcore fan basically all my life, one of my top favorite bands is it again has got to be Killswitch Engage. Another favorite band of mine is His Infernal Majesty. They're not really metal at all. They're sort of like a love metal band. Well, that's what they call themselves anyway. But that's one of the earlier bands I ever got into that made me want to continue with guitar playing. So, and they're fun. They're quite sort of Black Sabbath-y, I'd say. Some of the later material is definitely got a bit more Black Sabbath-y. Early stuff is a lot more sort of Billy Joel. I personally think they changed the sound because they ran out of Billy Joel songs to rip off. But but yeah, I'll let you judge that for yourself. But yeah, definitely check out His Infernal Majesty.
Okay.
Venus Doom in particular is a fantastic album.
Finn, when are you casting for Game of Thrones?
Funny enough, I'm always keeping my eye open for opportunities to be part of Viking TV shows. I did see years ago. I should have volunteered for it. They were looking for extras for a TV show called Vikings. I should have volunteered. That's one of my lifelong dream is to be a full Viking, or at least look like a Viking anyway. I'm on my way, but I've still got some work to do. But I'm trying to think if I want to sort of compare myself to anyone, it's one of the leader of the Wildlings. I don't know what his name is though. I can't remember it. But you know who I'm thinking of because he looks just like me.
Most people do, but as I mentioned earlier, I'm cheap and I don't have an HBO subscription, so I haven't seen any of the Game of Thrones. I assume you're talking about Game of Thrones there.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, here's another one. Finn, any chance on selling your mask for charity?
Ooh. If there's a demand for it, then sure. I mean, I've got no sentimental attachment to it. I could dig it out next time I'm away, which would be in December. So I will have a look then, and if I can find it, I'm pretty sure I know where it is. I will bring it back with me, and maybe we can make something happen. We'll have to wait and see.
Fair enough. And another one for you, Finn. When will we see Memories Lost Part 3?
Yeah. Probably never. There's 2 parts not enough for it. I don't know. I think, yeah. Memories Lost Part 3, probably not. The Unseen Part 2, maybe. Hintity hint.
So a related question here. Finn, will your older songs like Memories Lost make it onto Spotify?
Yeah, they will. They will. That's something I've been meaning to look into for ages because I had it on TuneCore for a long time, and then I switched to DistroKid. So I took all of it off. But since I already, I'll look into it, and hopefully I'll get it sorted by early next year. I'll put that as an urgent thing to do, sort of January. next year. The only problem is I don't have any of the files. Honestly, I don't. Like, I've gone through 2 computers. They're all back on my parents' computers where I did most of my recording. So I'll have to have a look when I'm there, see what I can dig out, see if I can get him to re-upload them. I'm not sure.
All right, we have a request to play some Dementia here. My friend Kevin Miller, one of my buddies from back in high school. So Dementia was the band that I was in back in high school. That was sort of the Metallica, Slayer style, and Kevin was the drummer in that band. So I think I had some Dementia posted on my old website for a while, but I don't know that it's posted there anymore. So I'll look into that if we can get the old Dementia songs hosted again. Here's one for me. KillrBuckeye, will you be doing an EP? I'd love to do an EP. It's just a matter of finding the time and to generate some more creative ideas and do that. But I haven't really given that serious thought. I'd love to do a full album, but it just comes down to the time thing. And I have to admit, I'm pretty jealous of some of these full-time YouTubers now, right? They can do music full-time, right? That's their day job. They're earning their living doing that. And unfortunately for the rest of us, myself included, right, I have to work most of my hours during the day, which fortunately for me, I really enjoy my job as an engineer. But yeah, not as much time to do music as I would like. Maybe in the future, that's something I would consider. All right. Somebody asked me, what is your biggest change within this 10 years? So I'm assuming that's asking about my 10-year hiatus. And I don't know, that's a really tough question to answer. I don't know. Maybe I'd have to ask my wife how I've changed in the 10 years. But I think I've always been really laid back. I think I'm even more laid back now than I used to be. It's just something about being a father and some craziness in family life, and you just have to learn to let things slide. And so yeah, that's what I would say is the biggest change. But maybe I'll get back to you on that. My wife could probably do a better job pointing out how I've changed. Yeah, so I think that covers most of the questions, and there's lots of comments on here that are really complimentary of the song and the work we've done together, the music. So I really appreciate that, everyone.
I've actually got a question for you.
Oh, okay.
So this is something that I think I've seen floating around on YouTube, especially since your return. What is your secret to looking so young after 10 years have passed? Is it a skin routine?
I have noticed a lot of those comments, and quite honestly, I'm surprised by the comments, because if you look at my old cover videos and you look right here and you compare that, the hair that I have in this corners of my head, what I have now, there's no question there's much less hair there. So I'm glad that that's really the only thing that's starting to give away my age a little bit. Maybe even with HD, you can pick up the sort of some of the wrinkles that are forming there. But maybe when we all move to 4K, it'll be more obvious that I have aged. I appreciate that. I'll take all those comments as compliments.
Yeah, fair enough.
So my wife does have an answer for the question about the 10 years. She says, I have not changed much. There you have it. Oh, there's another question that's come in here. What advice would you give someone who struggled with consistency in terms of guitar playing? I've been at it for some time, but it's been an on and off process for me, so I've been trying to figure it out more recently. You want to take that one, Finn?
Struggle with consistency. That's tricky. I mean, something that helped me a lot, something that I used to hate, and I'm not the biggest fan of. Playing to a metronome has really helped consistency of, for instance, my picking hand or my fretting hand. But it sort of depends what you mean by consistency. I mean, if you mean in how well you play, then possibly take it steps at a time. Don't try to push beyond what you know you can do straight away. Hopefully that doesn't sound too sort of disheartening. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's not. If you're trying to learn something in particular, like if there's a particular solo you want to fire on and you don't think your picking is consistent enough for it, definitely slow it down, because in my opinion, sort of speed equals accuracy. It comes down to this classic sort of comparison I make. If you can't play something slow, then you can't play it fast, and it's getting that consistency is trying to find the really horrible tempo, which is in between it being too slow and in between it being too quick. It's somewhere dead in the middle where you really have to be completely pinpoint accuracy, and you have to be super consistent that way. So metronome it, as painful as it is, start your day with a metronome. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. You can spend, 10 minutes on it to get into it first, and then you can move on to whatever you want to do. In terms of learning, okay.
Yeah, I remember I had, I don't know if it's still posted on my website, but I had in my FAQ some suggestions for how you can stay motivated to keep playing and keep learning and getting better. And I don't know if that's still there, but I remember some of my suggestions included, learning some new cover songs, right? What are the songs you're really enjoying listening to? Try to learn those songs, and it can be a lot of fun and give you the motivation to start playing again if you're in a funk. And acquiring new gear. I hate to make that recommendation because new gear is not necessarily going to make you better, but for me anyways, I can tell you that when I get a new guitar or get some new piece of equipment, it definitely gives me new motivation. It's like I'm hearing new sounds and that weren't possible before. So give that a shot as well. But I'd recommend going to my website, see if that article is still there about what gives you the motivation to keep playing.
I think the ones I remember were, this is just coming back to me, learn how to set up your guitar is something you said. Make sure, like, restring it, set it up correctly, get some new gear, go back to the old things you used to listen to. All good. That'll challenge you, or it'll get you back in the zone, according to Buckeye, not my words.
Right. I think we've addressed these questions here. Really appreciate all the compliments that I see here in the chat. And so I'm seeing in my chat window here, my wife has sent me a message on Google. And
I'm telling you to get off.
No, actually, no. She's still listening, which surprisingly, she's still listening, and so Evan, my older son Evan was starting to get into guitar for a while, and he was playing Rocksmith, and he was taking guitar lessons for a while. I figured he'd listen to trained instructor more so than he would me, as he's trying to learn guitar. But then I started giving him lessons myself, and I would always tell him to slow things down. And you sort of touched on that too, as well, Finn. But if something is difficult for you, play it even start at 60 or 70% speed and just work your way up.
So you've got a quick comment from one of my friends, Michael Perks. I'll give a shout out to him here. He says, "Hold on to your hair. Some of us weren't too lucky." His mate of mine used to have really long hair like me. He plays bass, plays guitar as well. It was his birthday actually yesterday, so happy birthday, Mike.
Yeah, happy birthday. Yeah, I appreciate the comment. I hope I hold on to this for a while. So my grandfather on my mom's side, he's like mid 90, I think he's 95 or 96 now, but he still has almost all of his hair. It's gray, but probably has about as much hair as I do. So hoping I have the same type of hair and it stays in. All right, let's wrap this up here. I want to just thank everyone for joining us tonight. This has been a lot of fun for me, hopefully for you as well. And for everyone who's supported us and followed us over the last, some of you longer than a decade now. It's just amazing, your support. And I could definitely not do what I'm doing. And Finn, you probably feel the same way without the support that and encouragement we receive from all of you. What we do would not be possible. So I really appreciate everyone.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. Thank you for basically inspiring me as well to push myself to release as much music as I can, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yep. So just one more quick reminder: tomorrow, the track releases. 11 a.m. is when Eastern time in the U.S. is when the video comes out on YouTube. Sorry, and then the track releases on Spotify at 11 a.m. With that, we're going to sign off here. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
All right.
See you later.